All right, we've started recording. Janet and I are getting together again, and we've invited our friend Rose to join us today. We're going to have our little Healing Mama Hearts chat. We try to do one often so we can talk to you guys out there. Just want to remind you guys of our goal, that we want to build a place for women to go that need help, because we just feel so strongly that women don't have a place to go when they're postpartum and struggling, and it just gets to a point where nobody knows where to send us for help. Nobody knows where to get help from, and so that's kind of what we want to kind of make a clear path and create actual physical places, little sanctuaries for moms to come heal and the medical help they need, and also the spiritual, mental, physical, everything, whole body help that we need.
Yeah. So Elise, I'm glad you mentioned the whole body healing. With, we want to approach it in many different directions, and the little place in the woods, or a little sanctuary that women could go with their babies. I always picture it to be kind of like the Ronald McDonald House. I don't know if any of you have had family in the Ronald McDonald House, but they are amazing. And I think they're a nonprofit organization as well. And I want one day to have something like that for mental health, for women to go and kind of almost be in a family environment, or even a little place of their own that is, really quiet, or whatever they need. So today our topic is default parenting and the mental load of that, and raising children without a family nearby, or without your support. We have Rose Hammond here, and we're so glad she would take time out to be with us, because she's been pretty busy. She's a licensed social worker and works as a therapist providing mental health services to individuals and families. Her passion is focused on maternal mental health and the parent-child relationship. Rose is also a certified Montessori teacher, a parenting coach, and mom to a busy toddler. You can connect with Rose on Instagram at little.lotus.montessori. Did I say that right, Rose?
Yes, that's right.
Lotus. And there's some awesome nuggets on that little site, I just found out. And I thought I would jot down a couple of one of the quotes, and then I found another one, and then I crossed out the other, and then I found another one. And I'm just like, what the heck? I want to copy every one of those quotes that you have on your Instagram. And
You're just so kind.
There's just wonderful help for parents. Like, I had no idea. So we're definitely going to put a plug in for that. In fact, we'll post your address down at the end of this, at the bottom of this video. But one of the quotes that, there's a couple, but here's one that really reached out to me, and it was like, what you don't heal becomes your child's burden. So true, because I'm all about breaking the chains of relationships that don't work, and healing those relationships and healing things before it becomes your child's burden. And then the next one was just speaking right to me. Remember, your child's behavior doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. Oh, that is like, yes. Because even though my kids are all grown up, my kiddos are all adults and doing their own thing, there's sometimes their behavior, I just take it very personal, like very personal. So
it's really hard not to, I think a lot of moms deal with that. I know I do. It's really hard to not take it personal, because your child is your life's work, right?
Yes, they're your art, and they're a blank canvas when they come into your world, and it's like, oh my goodness. But they're little individuals, and we have to remember that they're individual, right? They're not us.
They're going to make their own choices.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, that kind of took us off topic a tiny bit, but Rose, I was going to ask you, with default parenting, define that for us. I kind of think I know what what you mean by that, but
Sure. Yeah, so default parenting is kind of a newer term, and it ties into like that mental load that we're also going to talk about. But default parenting is basically one parent is doing more of the parenting and taking care of the children more than the other. And you usually know if you're the default parent. And if you're curious, if you're the default parent, you're probably like, if you're like, am I or am I not? You're probably not. Some other ways to think of it is like my husband and I always joke, like I'm always the one that's like, hey, I'm gonna go take a shower. Like I always have to check in and let him know, like I'm gonna be absent for the next 20 minutes, right? Whereas he can just go take a shower. He doesn't say that. Like, so that's kind of a way of thinking of it. It's usually the parent that's doing most of the work. And I don't say that in a negative way. Like oftentimes that falls on the woman because you're your mom, right? Like your kids need you. But it's just being aware of that and the fact that that is something that we carry as moms.
Yeah, when you said that, I was thinking, you know what? I remember feeling guilty because when I'd go shower, I'd shut the door. Or I go to the bathroom with the door open. Like,
yep.
I think that's an indicator too, don't you?
I do.
If you're going to the bathroom with the door wide open so that you can keep watching the kids. Like I still do that. Like I have a habit of worrying about shutting the door when I go to shower or going to the bathroom.
Yes. Absolutely. And another one too is if you do date nights with your significant other, are you the one that's finding the babysitter to replace you? Yeah, it's usually the mom that's doing that. Or if you want to go out with your girlfriends or have tea with a friend, you have to replace yourself.
Okay, that's how you, that's an indicator.
Yeah, that's kind of an indicator.
Okay. Wow, Elise, I'll bet you are the default parent. Yeah?
Yeah, just naturally. I mean, there's, some balance to that anyway, because I don't go out and work and do all that. So I'm already in that groove. I'm already in that, mindset of this is my responsibility from 9 to 5, but then it just spills over into the rest of the 24 hours.
Right. 24/7.
Yeah, it seems like if you're a stay-at-home mom, your job doesn't end. It isn't 9 to 5 for sure. It's all the time.
All the time.
Sometimes I'll tell my kids like it'll be 8 o'clock and I've already tried to put them to bed and they'll keep coming out and I'm like, sorry guys, I'm clocked out. You guys can't bother me right now. Go to bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. This morning I heard the dogs in their kennel whining because they needed to go outside, right? And I hurried and get up and I'm like, oh, I hope they didn't wake Tim up. And I'm hurried quietly getting up and I let him out. It's raining. And so it's not a small deal, right? You got to get the umbrella and, encourage them to go out in the rain to go relieve themselves. And I come back in and I thought, I kind of think I did that with our kiddos too. Like, I kind of think I protected him from being the one getting up to their whining, and their crying. And so then, of course, when he got up an hour later, I had a chat with them. I'm like, hey, we're parenting the same as we used to, and I don't like it.
I love that you noticed that.
So we get in these styles, and I used to call it good cop, bad cop things. And it isn't the same thing as good cop, bad cop, but I think it could kind of slide into that,
It can. Usually, if you're the default parent, you're the one that's making the house rules and you're keeping schedules. And sometimes that weight of always having to balance all these balls and keep the schedule going makes it so that you're not the fun parent, right? It makes you feel that way anyways. I'm not the fun parent. And then sometimes dad gets to step in and wrestle with the kids or do whatever and then leave. And you're like, well, that was fun for you.
That was very fun for you.
Yeah.
You know, that is such a good point, Rose, because I remember with raising my kiddos, we had that going on, and then I was resentful. Instead of saying, wait a minute, you know what just happened today? I made sure they got their chores done and corrected them with this and that and helped them with their homework. You come in and said, hey, let's go to dinner. And everybody's like, yay, Pop's home, we're going to dinner. And I kind of feel like, you know, that I just got resentful at the end of the day instead of acknowledging, hey, this is what's been happening on and on and on. And now I feel like the frumpy old nobody gets excited when I come home, like, ooh, mom's home, great. But when Pop comes home, like, wow, he might do something awesome with them, but I wasn't doing anything awesome. I was exhausted by the end of the day. And so it took me so long to realize that we just kind of got in this groove that wasn't feeding my soul as a parent. And it was feeding his soul. Like, and I would encourage the kids, oh, in my mind, I'd be like, we don't want to go out to dinner for lunch because Pop's gone to work. Like, he'll miss out. And so we never just did stuff, me and the girls alone without Pop. Hey, and by the way, Elise and Rose, if you need to stop and take care of the kids or whatever, do it, because this is just a chat and you guys are moms. I'm the moms to little doggies, but you know, if you need to stop and take care of them, we totally can, because it's just a casual chat. But yeah, Rose, I think I got into those and I didn't articulate why I was so ticked off and so angry, but it was because I wasn't enjoying that part of parenting like he was.
Well, I think you bring up a really great point, and that is the resentment piece. So I'll get like, when I work with other clients, I get a lot of pushback sometimes from women saying, but I want to be the default parent. I want to be the mom that's doing all of that. And that's okay. Like, if you want to be doing that, that's great. And I support you in that choice. However, you should be aware of what you're carrying, because that resentment can really sneak up on you. And before you know it, you're really angry. And you're like, why? Why am I angry? So it's really just about bringing awareness to this whole conversation and knowing that when that resentment sneaks in, that is your cue. That's your cue to have a conversation with your spouse or your partner and say, hey, this is what I'm feeling and this is what I'm carrying. And sometimes we don't even know what we're carrying.
Yes.
So we have to be careful, right? What we take on.
Yes. You know what? I was a real bad helicopter parent, and I would wait until I was so angry that I'd take it out on people around me and still not clue in to what is going on. I thought, oh, my hormones are imbalanced, or this kid makes me angry. No, the kids don't make you angry. There's something going on that the thoughts are what's making me angry. And I'm finally, it took me years, Rose, to go, why am I reacting like this? What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
What am I doing?
That way. What were you going to say, Elise?
So like you were mentioning that some people want to be default parents, and that kind of is my feeling, in my own personal feeling, is the kids are my job. This is what I pour all my time into, and it's a great thing. But what I hear from you and what I'm understanding is that you have to understand the limits and the expectations. This job of taking care of kids can be so overwhelming and so 24/7 and so too much that it's too much for one person. So learning what your limits are, learning what makes it enjoyable when it becomes not enjoyable anymore, and what to do about it, how to ask for help, how to communicate, hey, I'm starting to feel resentful, or hey, I'm getting burned out, I need this or that or whatever.
Yes, absolutely. I think you said that really well. And also being aware of like your own needs. Like, it's okay to have needs as a mom. And there shouldn't be any shame around that. there shouldn't be shame around the fact that we're feeling resentful because we're carrying so much. But often there is. It's like, well, I had these kids and I should love this 24/7. And it's okay to not love it 24/7.
Yeah,
Right.
Rose, that's a good point. I remember feeling so guilty when my kiddos would say something like, "I hate you." I remember going, "Well, you know what? Sometimes I don't like you either." And I remember feeling so guilty and shame for that because I gave birth to this child that I don't really like sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think being okay with being human and expressing your humanness is so important. And it'll help you do that next step, which is understanding why you're frustrated and why your kiddo's lashing out, and but being okay with sometimes you don't like being a mom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not all fun anyway. It's okay to not like parts of it.
Absolutely. Some stages are just really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's how it is with every job. Like, Elise said, that is her job. I think even Elisa's husband, he doesn't always like his job, and he doesn't always, but if he brought his work home and he thought about it 24/7, he would have nightmares. And because I'm saying this because my husband, he was on this really stressful job, and it was like he woke up with nightmares like 2 or 3 nights in a row. And I thought, wow, that's kind of, it shows the imbalance, right? And he's bringing his work home. And so with women, when they eat, sleep, and drink their work like 24/7, that's an imbalance too.
Absolutely. If you're not able to meet your needs, it's an imbalance and it will come out in your parenting. It's just a matter of fact. We have to be able to meet our needs, both emotionally and physically. And if we can't do that, it will come out somewhere. And unfortunately, usually it's coming out in parenting.
Yeah, that is so true. So true. And I feel like that's the difference between parenting from your head versus your heart, intuitively from your heart. I just was in motion, making sure the jobs got done and everybody ate healthy, and just going through the motions like on a battlefront or something. And I learned that, man, I was parenting, just it wasn't intuitively. It was just, you know,
Survival.
survival. Yeah, survival. That's right. And I feel like a lot of women that are watching our videos are on survival. I'll get messages after putting a post or a video. I'll get individual messages of women just going, I am just existing. I'm just surviving one moment to the next. And that's okay if that's all that you can do is one moment to the next. That's a way of doing it, right?
Yeah, and then there's me and I'm like, all right, let's dive into that. Why?
Yeah.
Let's talk about why and what you're feeling. Um, a lot of what we're talking about too ties into that mental load that moms carry, and it's part of that default parenting. But there's like this cognitive labor that goes along with our job as a mom, and it's also a weight. And I think it's something we need to talk about because it's this invisible load that we need to make visible, and we need to be acknowledged for it because we want to have that value. Like we want people to see value in what we're doing, right? Because that's how we feel valued. So if we don't make that invisible load visible, how are we ever going to be acknowledged for it? And when I say make the invisible visible, I'm talking about things like the kids' schedule, um, like all the mental responsibilities that you carry, like as a mom, like when your kid's snack schedule is at school, right? You know their teachers' names. You know when they need a play date. You know if they didn't get along well with a friend at school that day. And you know that you need to talk to them about that and work through that with them. You're constantly thinking in the back of your mind, like, oh, I need to buy laundry detergent, or we're out of toilet paper. There's all of this that is part of this invisible load. And then moms are like, why am I overwhelmed? And there's all this self-judgment, like I shouldn't be overwhelmed. I don't understand. Like I must be doing something wrong. And
Yeah.
that's just not the case, right? It's all this invisible stuff that we need to make visible.
So Rose, at what point is that stuff anxiety? I mean, at what point is that healthy and normal to have all of that going on and okay? And what point is it just anxiety?
Well, I don't know if it just all of a sudden comes to a point where it's anxiety.
Okay.
And that's going to be different for everyone. Um, but like kind of just going back to making that visible and understanding that this is something you're carrying and knowing when you need to ask for help, knowing when you need to sit down with your partner and say, look, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what I'm carrying, and I need help with it.
I also think that the way that you think about things determines if it's anxiety or not. To me, if I can feel calm and cool and collected while I'm thinking about all these things and maybe writing them down and sorting them and organizing them, I don't feel anxiety. But if I'm trying to rush out the door, listening, and I'm just freaking out and yelling, I'm like, okay, that's my anxiety.
Right.
It's more how you're handling it, to me, than all the stuff on your plate. It could be the same. All the things that you need to get done can all be the same. It all just depends on how you're able to come at it and able to cope and process it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great example of how it's kind of individualized. Like that's how you know if it's too much for you. And for me, I know it's too much for me when I become the angry mom, right? Like if I'm feeling angry and irritable, it's because I know I haven't asked for enough help, or I haven't I don't know, I haven't been aware of what I'm carrying.
Yeah.
If that makes
Or said no enough to other
right.
responsibilities, So Rose, I really loved how you brought up the point that making those things that are always going through your brain, the things that you do in the day and that your children are doing, making them visible can make a huge difference. And I feel like, I was coaching a mom a while ago, and she said, I am so scared because I am pregnant. And every time I get pregnant, I deal with postpartum depression so bad that I can't hardly. And she says, I didn't even know what postpartum depression is until you did the workshop and talked about it. And I know that's what it is now. And I'm actually, this is the first time I've even talked about what it is or what I'm doing, what I've gone through. She says, but I'm so scared. And she sat there for a minute, and she's like, but I mean, I just talking about it kind of helps with that fear. And and I thought that was so cool. The more we talked about it, the better she felt in like, and I said, I challenge you to go talk to your husband about these fears that you have about being pregnant again. You know, um, she says, yeah, I've just always just gone, I've never told anybody these thoughts because they're horrible thoughts. And why would I tell somebody that I'm having these horrible thoughts, let alone my husband that thinks I'm a perfect wife and mother for these children? Anyway, the more we brought those thoughts out in the sunshine, the more she kind of was like, okay, I've got this type of, I mean, it took a while for sure, but it was like just speaking those words, just saying, these are the things that are going on in my brain. I don't really need you to fix it, but this is what's going on, was huge. And I think that is a wonderful first step, Rose, is to just speak about what the unseen things are that's in your mind, or what somebody's going through that's unseen that you don't notice.
Yes, I agree. I think that talking about it and making that stuff visible is important for all women. And that's why I love what you guys are doing, because it's having those conversations, right? It's making that visible.
We try to make it our conversations we try to bring women together with conversations that are tough conversations, and still just kind of like not hold back, be vulnerable. And it's tough. Like, I think it's ingrained with generation after generation after generation that we just don't talk about those things, you know? And we try to be totally real and not edit what we're doing. And of course, I dressed up a little bit more than I normally do, put a curl in my hair too, and a scarf. But I'm okay with just being totally real. Like, and I think that'll give other women permission. The more, the more we reach out to people. And I really loved, Rose, that you and I were chatting about what Elise and I are doing. And you said it's really neat that you're reaching out in your own community and with people right around you, because that is tough. Like, what gives us the right to speak about these things, right? Because we
Your
didn't have it as bad
experience.
as this gal down the road. She had postpartum depression really bad, so why could we even talk about it,
Oh yeah, we can't compare, right? Like, comparison is never a good thing. Pain is always valid. Whatever you're feeling is valid, and it doesn't matter who felt it worse. It's always
Yeah.
valid.
It's making that bridge between the unspeakable and healing. It's bridging that we try to do. We try to just be open. And I remember when I first met Elise, I remember thinking, I don't even know, she just is so perfect looking. I don't even know if she would understand my messy self. Like, I wanted to be a friend with her so bad, but I'm like, I'm just a mess. I smell bad sometimes. I talk wrong sometimes. I'm just a mess. And I've got to quiet my whoops, let me hang on a second. I'm not sure how to mute myself right now, but I've got somebody knocking at the door. So you guys carry on. I'll be right back.
Okay. That's hilarious.
Yeah, that expectation and the judgment, and social media, I feel like has just amplified that, because comparing each other to our worst to their best.
Yes. Yes,
So,
social media definitely plays a part in the comparison.
yeah. So, and then what was the other part of our topic that we were discussing? Oh, parenting without support or without help. Did you have some stuff that you wanted to cover on that or chat about?
Honestly, I think we were just going to have a conversation about it. I think, it's more about like what we've already been saying about asking for support, and how not having family around can really increase that default parenting syndrome and the mental load. It really increases that for moms. A couple other things I just wanted to mention about like the mental load and the default parenting is that stuff increases with each child that you have. And it also increases if you have a child with special needs or a child with disabilities. That is going to increase all of that. And so I think it's important to just be aware of that too.
Yeah,
that is such a good point. The more children you have, the more. So are you saying, could postpartum depression, it could get worse as time goes on, or it could get better, but most likely it could get worse right?
Well, I'm mostly just talking about the mental load and the deep parenting, how that increases with each child. Postpartum depression, again, that's yes, if you've had it with one child, you're more likely to have it with your next. It doesn't mean that it will be worse. But you are more likely to have it. So yeah, being aware of that is helpful too.
You're so sweet, Rose. Instead of saying, hey, catch up, lady.
No.
You're awesome.
It's all right. You had to answer the door. It's no big deal.
So I shared a post on my personal page just recently, talking about how, when you send kids over to grandparents' house, how it can be just it can almost be more of a stress sometimes. But in the little article that I shared, it just really hit home with me because it reminded me of when I was a younger mom, and I just had a hard time with sending them over to my parents or Mike's parents or whatever, because they did things differently, or they did things that were going to mess up the routine, or, and it took a while just to get them back into the routine. It took a while to get them off that sugar high. It took them a while to, do all those things. And I wasn't appreciating the break that I got. The break that I got wasn't worth the amount of effort that it took to get them back on schedule, or to get them, to fix whatever had been done. But reading through that little article, it's just talked about how they're making memories. They're making memories that they'll have forever. And it's not, just because they do it differently doesn't mean it's wrong, and I think that's part of the default parenting, is that even with husbands, when they come home and they try to help, if they're not doing it the right way or the way that you do it, you don't feel like it's getting done. And so that's something that is like, you have to let go of. You have to be willing to let them learn. How long have you been parenting? How long have you been raising this child? Just you, 2, 3, 4 years, and you finally got it down pat. But they haven't been doing it every day, all day, And so when someone comes in to help, if your husband tries to help, it takes a lot of patience sometimes, I feel like, to have grace and to be like, yeah, he hasn't been practicing it as long as I have. He hasn't been doing this the way that I've been doing it, the way I figured out is the right way to do it. But maybe he will figure out a way that's better, or figure out a way that works for him. But you have to let them try. You have to let them just figure out what works for them and be okay with that. And that's so hard for me sometimes. I'm just like, that's not the right way to do it, But
Yeah, I hear you. I think that's a really great point. Sometimes we do want the help, but we want it done the way we want it, right? And if you're like me, I'm very particular with everything. And so that's something that I've really had to work on in my own marriage, is letting go of some of that control and allowing things to be done a different way. So I think that really is a really great point. And I also just want to say, because there are some people out there that may feel that we're attacking men or husbands. And for me, this is really a conversation about, like, how can you come at this as a team and have a conversation that's not about, well, I do all this and you don't do this. It's like, here are the things that need to be done. Here's where I'm not able to catch this ball or that ball. How can we both tackle this together, and taking it from that point of view, instead of it's me against you and I'm doing way more than you.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that could go on forever. That could be
Right.
never ending. And so that kind of brings us to the point of raising children without much of a tribe or a circle, like I know that it throws us clear off schedule sometimes when our children go to their grandparents or to aunts and uncles. But there's that aspect of not having family nearby that we were going to talk about too, that is a challenge. You don't have your tribe, right?
Yeah, I think I liked what Elise said, because it actually gives me another perspective as well, because I'm one of those moms that doesn't have family around. And I always think, wow, that would be so nice if I could run to the grocery store alone, or, leave my kid with grandma so they can have memories with grandma. And I know some people live that way by choice. They don't live by family by choice, but then there's some that's just how the circumstances are, and they wish there was family around. So I think there are pros and cons to both sides of it. One is not better than the other. I want to see women have that support. And I know that sometimes family is that, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's more work to have family there.
Yeah. That is a good point. That is a good point. And sometimes we kind of create our own family structure in a foreign place, you
Mm-hmm.
know, with our own support group. And that's, you know, with work, sometimes you travel for work and sometimes you do have to be in different locations or for school or whatever. And creating your own support group, I think that is kind of, Elise and I really, really encourage people that follow us and that listen to our videos to find your people, even if they're not blood related. Find people that you can call in a moment's notice and say, hey, can you come over and watch my kiddos? I have an emergency, you know?
Yeah, being able to have that person is just so important. And I know it's been hard for a lot of women, at least the last, I don't know, feels like it's been 5 years since COVID happened. But with everything that's happened with COVID, that's really, really made it hard for people that don't have family around to find those people because everyone's divided on how they feel about being next to someone, you know?
Yeah.
So that's really increased mental health issues for people.
Yeah.
But being able to reach out and make friends, find people with common interests, people with kids your own age, taking your kids to a class like my daughter's at a gymnastics class right now. You know, that's always a great way to find other moms that have kids the same age as you, and be able to reach outside your comfort zone and find those people because everyone needs a village, whether it's family or not. Everyone needs that village.
Yep.
That's a good point. Oh, my, the kiddos I'm babysitting here. I'm babysitting some kiddos here and some little dogs.
Aww.
They just found my cord.
Nice.
But yeah, that's a good point too. With the pandemic, that's actually when we started, when we put together our group was during the pandemic, right? Elise, I had noticed way more people
Yeah.
coming or calling and saying, you know what, I'm dealing with depression, anxiety, and just so many people. And that's kind of when we started going, you know, postpartum depression is not only not acknowledged enough, but it also is compounded right now. And yeah, it does feel like it's been 5 years, but I feel like we're kind of learning to still have friendships and a support system. Like you said, find somebody that's like-minded that will go, okay, you know, we'll meet here and here and we'll do this, but not this or whatever, you know, instead of just stay locked up in your house and not dare reach out to anybody. There's
Yeah.
online support too. That's what I've found to be, you know, so supportive is if you pick and choose right, you can find some really neat support system places online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's
So
some great support groups.
yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I remember doing when the pandemic, when everything shut down and we were all so encouraged to stay home and stuff, and I think that was a big challenge for a lot of moms. I remember having a friend who was just posting on her own page saying, when is this going to end? I can't do this anymore. I can't stay home with kids with no friends over. With, you know, when is this going to end? Is there anybody out there who doesn't care and will just come anyway? And I thought that's, you know, kind of scary. But then at the same time, I was like, yeah, you still need to live a little. You need to broaden your circle a little bit. So I was talking to her about it and I said, hey, all the stay home order stuff had stopped, but there was that little bit of threat of it coming back. And I talked to her and I said, hey, what if there's another lockdown and we're not supposed to go visit, you know, do a bunch of stuff? What if we are just with each other? Like we'll let our kids play, but we won't go and play other places. You know, we won't go visit other people and go do other, you know, activities and stuff like that. And that just kind of gave her a little bit of a door to say, you know, we'll just expose ourselves to each other because we need each other right now. But, you know, we'll keep it in that little bubble. But, we just need that support so badly. I felt like she really needed that leg to stand on during that time.
I love that you were able to be that person and have that person. And I also had to do the same thing when the pandemic hit. Like I had to create this little tiny bubble of friends where we were just seeing each other and that was it. And it literally saved me because there was just no one else. And I was like, I don't want to do this alone. I I don't want to be with my 1-year-old for the next 90 days all by ourselves, right? Like I would go crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely had to do that. And if you think back on like how women used to parent, like back in the hunter and gatherer days, right? Like no one parented alone. No one was isolated, right? We all had we had 5 other women helping us with our baby and we were helping them with their baby.
Yeah.
And there was that village and it's just so different now. So I see that we all still have that need. It's just harder to find.
Yes, that's a good point. I love that. And Elise is always the one saying you need to find your village, because it really, we were talking to a gal from Africa. Was she from Yeah, she was from Africa, and she was struggling with postpartum depression. And she started talking, and she started saying, normally this and this and this. She was without her tribe. And she would normally have her mom and her sisters be coming over every day to visit or help her or cook with her. And she's in the city now, and her husband's, I think he was deployed or something. Anyway, it's exactly what I think that the pandemic has kind of done a little fruit basket upset. We've had to reinvent some family circles and support circles that we used to have. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important too to think like what kind of mom friend you're looking for and try to be that person for someone else. Because I hear a lot of clients that I work with say things like, I want that friend where I can invite them over and I'm in my sweats and we can drink a glass of wine while our kids play without having to clean my whole house before they come over or cook a nice meal. And so I think that's really important and like offer that to someone, be that person for someone else if that's what you're looking for.
That is such a good point. That is such a good point. Is just brush off our friendship skills.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that takes the back seat whenever we have kids, that that energy, it takes energy and time to make friends and keep friends and take care of friends. And so I've always, I find myself sometimes longing for the best friend status. You see people, and I think it's a certain type of people that have besties or have best friends, or oh, she's my best friend. But I don't feel like I've ever in my life had someone claim me as that. And so sometimes that'll hit me sometimes where I'm like, okay, no one's out there saying, oh, she's my best friend. And so I've always had to just spend so much energy to be the best friend, not be the best friend, but be a good friend. And so it takes a lot of time and energy to do that. And so that can be kind of, I think, a deterrent to a lot of people. I think a lot of people feel like, oh, I'm more of an introvert. A lot of that is because it takes a lot of energy to make friends. I remember traveling. My husband was a travel nurse for a while, and we went with him. Every 3 months, we would be going somewhere else. And so my goal was like, I have to make friends as fast as possible as I get somewhere. Like I would be finding people within days, I would usually have people that I knew within the week. Because that was, you get there and then the time flies and then it's gone and you're like, oh, I didn't really meet anybody while I was there. So that was just my goal when I was traveling was, make as many friends as possible in the short amount of time that I'm going to be there. So yeah, it takes energy. And you talked about how we have to be that friend. Well, be willing to go over to other people's house that have their sweats on and haven't cleaned their house. Go be that person. If you want that person, be that person.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely. And Elisa, I hear a lot of women say that, like, that they don't have time to make friendships because friendships take time and effort. And I think if there's enough of us out there saying that there's enough of us that can be friends with each other and not need the constant see each other every day, require a million texts and whatever, like whatever it is that we feel is going to consume us to be a good friend. I do think friendships absolutely change after you have kids, right? Like it's totally different because your life is so focused around your kids and their schedule and naps and all of those things. Yeah, so I hear you on the time thing. I think a lot of people feel that way.
but I feel like the village thing also goes in with that, because the good friendships that I have been because other forces have brought us together constantly.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was working at the YMCA, I made good friends there because I was there every day and they were helping me with my kids, and that was my village for a while. And that's that village mentality, is you don't have someone just in your face all the time naturally just because that's the reason they're there. And because our Western civilization has kind of had us go to different corners,
Mm-hmm.
our own individual little houses and our individual little lives, we've really secluded ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's because we all have a washer and dryer. We all have a blender. We don't borrow like we used to.
cook our own meals.
Our ancestors used to meet together and do their laundry together.
Mm-hmm.
And do their whatever together, and their births and everything was a big community event.
Yeah.
So things have definitely changed. And my take home, I know this is probably the longest video that we've made.
Oh, wow.
And I could make this video. I mean, I could sit here for 3 hours and chat. This is just my good time. But I think my take home would be to make those things that are not spoken and not noticed more noticed for other people, like notice and acknowledge that this person has a load on her shoulders because she is the primary caregiver, or she is the default parent. Because while you're sitting there talking about it, Rose, I'm thinking of all these people that I'm like, wow, this person is really the default parent and has all these stresses on her, and nobody probably acknowledges this, and maybe that is the root to those struggles. So that's my take home is even if it's my own struggles that I haven't spoken about, that I'm going to start speaking it and acknowledging other people in their aloneness or whatever, in their own stuff, their own busy stuff. I sure appreciate you willing to take time out for us to chat with us. I love it.
Oh, I'm so happy to get the chance to talk with both of you, and I love what you guys are doing and the resources that you're offering to women in your own community. I just think that's awesome.
I am, yeah, I appreciate you. I hope we can chat more. And, we've already taken a couple hours of your time. Not that the video's a couple hours long, but it's awesome to chat with you. And I'm going to go and stalk you on Instagram.
Well, I've really enjoyed this conversation. So thank you to both of you. I've loved getting to talk to you.
Yeah, awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks.